Question 1. In California, what is the primary standard for a law enforcement officer to make a lawful arrest without a warrant? A. Mere suspicion. B. Probable cause. C. Reasonable doubt. D. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Answer: B. Probable cause. For a law enforcement officer to lawfully arrest someone without a warrant in California, they must have probable cause, which means there are facts and circumstances that would lead a reasonable person to believe that a crime has been committed and that the person to be arrested committed it. This standard is a foundational principle in criminal procedure, balancing individual liberty with public safety needs. It is a higher standard than mere suspicion but lower than the beyond a reasonable doubt required for conviction. Understanding the threshold for lawful police action is crucial for all citizens. Question 2. Which amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures? A. First Amendment. B. Second Amendment. C. Fourth Amendment. D. Fifth Amendment. Answer: C. Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is a cornerstone of individual privacy and liberty, specifically protecting people from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. This means law enforcement generally needs a warrant, supported by probable cause, or an exception to the warrant rule, before searching a person or their property. Understanding this protection helps individuals know their rights when interacting with authorities. Question 3. What is the legal standard that allows a law enforcement officer to briefly detain a person for questioning if they suspect criminal activity? A. Probable cause. B. Reasonable suspicion. C. Preponderance of the evidence. D. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Answer: B. Reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is the legal standard that allows a law enforcement officer to briefly stop and detain an individual for questioning when they have specific, articulable facts that suggest the person is involved in criminal activity. This standard is less demanding than probable cause, which is needed for an arrest, but it is more than just a hunch or mere curiosity. Understanding this distinction helps clarify the varying levels of police interaction. Question 4. In California, what is the minimum age to legally purchase a handgun? A. 18 years old. B. 21 years old. C. 25 years old. D. 30 years old. Answer: B. 21 years old. In California, the minimum age to legally purchase a handgun is 21 years old. This age requirement is a significant part of the state's efforts to regulate firearms sales and enhance public safety. It is important for anyone considering purchasing a handgun to be aware of and comply with all state and federal age restrictions and licensing requirements. Question 5. Which of the following best describes the Miranda warning? A. A warning given to suspects about their right to remain silent and right to an attorney before a search. B. A warning given to suspects about their right to remain silent and right to an attorney before custodial interrogation. C. A warning given to suspects about their right to refuse a sobriety test. D. A warning given to suspects about their right to refuse a pat-down search. Answer: B. A warning given to suspects about their right to remain silent and right to an attorney before custodial interrogation. The Miranda warning informs individuals taken into police custody of their Fifth Amendment rights, the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, which must be recited before any custodial interrogation. This means if you are arrested and police want to question you, they must first read you these rights. Understanding when and why Miranda rights are given is crucial for anyone interacting with law enforcement. Question 6. What concept emphasizes building trust and cooperation between police and the community they serve? A. Zero-tolerance policing. B. Broken windows theory. C. Community policing. D. Militarized policing. Answer: C. Community policing. Community policing is a philosophy that emphasizes building positive relationships, trust, and cooperation between law enforcement agencies and the communities they serve to address crime and social disorder. Instead of just reacting to crimes, it focuses on proactive problem-solving in partnership with residents. This approach recognizes that effective public safety is a shared responsibility. Question 7. According to California law, what must a person possess before they can legally purchase a firearm? A. A valid hunting license. B. A concealed carry permit. C. A firearm safety certificate, FSC. D. Proof of military service. Answer: C. A firearm safety certificate, FSC. In California, with some limited exceptions, an individual must possess a valid firearm safety certificate, FSC, to legally purchase or acquire a handgun or any firearm. The FSC demonstrates that the individual has passed a written test covering basic firearm safety laws and regulations. Obtaining this certificate is a mandatory step for most firearm transactions in the state. Question 8. When is an officer generally allowed to conduct a pat-down search, frisk, of an individual during a lawful detention? A. Anytime an officer wants to. B. When the officer has probable cause for an arrest. C. When the officer has a reasonable belief that the person is armed and dangerous. D. Only with the individual's consent. Answer: C. When the officer has a reasonable belief that the person is armed and dangerous. An officer is generally allowed to conduct a pat-down search, often called a Terry frisk, of an individual during a lawful detention if they have a reasonable belief, based on specific and articulable facts, that the person is armed and dangerous. This limited search is strictly for weapons to ensure the officers and public safety, not to search for evidence of a crime. This exception to the warrant rule prioritizes safety during field encounters. Question 9. What term describes the legal principle that evidence obtained in violation of a defendant's constitutional rights cannot be used against them in court? A. Stare decisis. B. Habeas corpus. C. Exclusionary rule. D. Double jeopardy. Answer: C. Exclusionary rule. The exclusionary rule is a legal principle that dictates that evidence collected or analyzed in violation of the defendant's constitutional rights, most notably the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, is generally inadmissible for use in a criminal prosecution. This rule serves to deter illegal police conduct and protect constitutional liberties. It is a critical safeguard against government overreach in criminal investigations. Question 10. Which of the following is not a fundamental rule of firearm safety? A. Treat every firearm as if it is loaded. B. Always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. C. Rely on the firearm's safety mechanism to prevent accidental discharge. D. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target and you have decided to shoot. Answer: C. Rely on the firearm's safety mechanism to prevent accidental discharge. Relying solely on a firearm's safety mechanism to prevent accidental discharge is not a fundamental rule of firearm safety, it's a dangerous misconception. Safety mechanisms can fail or be accidentally disengaged, which is why fundamental rules emphasize user responsibility, like treating every firearm as loaded, keeping the muzzle pointed safely, and keeping the finger off the trigger. Always remember that mechanical safeties are only a backup, not a substitute for safe handling practices. Question 11. In California, what is the maximum permissible blood alcohol content, BAC, for an adult age 21 or older to legally operate a vehicle? A. 0.1%. B. 0.08%. C. 0.05%. D. 0.02%. Answer: B. 0.08%. In California, the maximum permissible blood alcohol content, BAC, for an adult age 21 or older to legally operate a vehicle is 0.08%. Driving with a BAC at or above this limit is considered driving under the influence, DUI, and carries significant legal consequences. This legal standard is a crucial part of efforts to prevent impaired driving and ensure road safety. Question 12. What is the primary purpose of a chain of custody when handling evidence in a criminal investigation? A. To ensure the evidence is aesthetically pleasing. B. To demonstrate the evidence has been properly packaged. C. To prove who has possessed the evidence from the moment it was collected until it is presented in court. D. To speed up the processing of evidence in the lab. Answer: C. To prove who has possessed the evidence from the moment it was collected until it is presented in court. The primary purpose of maintaining a chain of custody for evidence in a criminal investigation is to document the exact sequence of possession and control of the evidence from the moment it is collected at a crime scene until it is presented in court. This meticulous record ensures the evidence's integrity, authenticity, and admissibility, preventing claims of tampering or mishandling. Without a clear chain of custody, evidence may be deemed unreliable. Question 13. Which of the following situations generally requires an officer to obtain a search warrant? A. Searching a vehicle stopped for a traffic violation. B. Searching a person's home for evidence of a crime. C. Searching a person incident to a lawful arrest. D. Searching an item that is in plain view. Answer: B. Searching a person's home for evidence of a crime. Generally, searching a person's home for evidence of a crime requires an officer to obtain a search warrant, as the home is afforded the highest level of Fourth Amendment protection. This rule underscores the principle that an individual has a strong expectation of privacy within their residence. There are limited exceptions to this warrant requirement, such as exigent circumstances, but a warrant is the standard. Question 14. What ethical principle obligates law enforcement officers to use only the necessary amount of force to control a situation? A. Due process. B. Objective reasonableness. C. Equal protection. D. Probable cause. Answer: B. Objective reasonableness. The ethical and legal principle of objective reasonableness dictates that law enforcement officers must use only the amount of force that an objectively reasonable officer would use in the same situation, based on the facts and circumstances known to the officer at the moment the force was applied. This standard, derived from the U.S. Supreme Court case Graham v. Connor, considers factors like the severity of the crime, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat, and whether they are actively resisting. Understanding this standard is vital for both officers and the public regarding use of force encounters. Question 15. In California, what is the legal term for a minor offense that is punishable by a fine or a short jail sentence, typically less than 1 year? A. Felony. B. Infraction. C. Misdemeanor. D. Wobbler. Answer: C. Misdemeanor. In California, a misdemeanor is a legal term for a less serious criminal offense that is punishable by a fine, a jail sentence of up to 1 year, or both. This category of crime is distinct from more severe felonies, which carry potential sentences to state prison, and less severe infractions, which are typically only punishable by a fine. Understanding these classifications is fundamental to California's legal system. Question 16. What is the primary purpose of CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation? A. To cure a heart attack. B. To restore normal breathing and circulation in an unconscious person. C. To provide temporary breathing and circulation until professional medical help arrives. D. To diagnose a cardiac emergency. Answer: C. To provide temporary breathing and circulation until professional medical help arrives. The primary purpose of CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is to provide temporary breathing and circulation for a person whose heart has stopped beating and who is not breathing, effectively bridging the gap until professional medical help arrives. It does not cure a heart attack but keeps vital organs supplied with oxygenated blood, significantly increasing the chances of survival. Knowing basic first aid like CPR can be life-saving in emergency situations. Question 17. What is the legal term for falsely stating something as a fact, knowing it is untrue, and intending to deceive, particularly under oath? A. Perjury. B. Slander. C. Libel. D. Extortion. Answer: A. Perjury. Perjury is the legal term for the criminal offense of knowingly making a false statement under oath or affirmation, particularly in a legal proceeding, with the intent to deceive. This act undermines the integrity of the judicial system and is considered a serious felony. It is crucial to always be truthful, especially when giving official statements. Question 18. An officer's decision to pursue a fleeing suspect must consider what primary factor? A. The officer's personal feelings about the suspect. B. The potential danger posed to the public by the pursuit. C. The value of the property stolen. D. How fast the suspect's vehicle is. Answer: B. The potential danger posed to the public by the pursuit. An officer's decision to pursue a fleeing suspect must primarily consider the potential danger posed to the public by the pursuit itself, weighing the need to apprehend the suspect against the risks involved. This critical assessment helps prevent unnecessary accidents and injuries to innocent bystanders. Law enforcement agencies often have strict pursuit policies to guide officers in these high-stakes situations. Question 19. What is the term for a formal written order issued by a judge that authorizes law enforcement to perform a specific act, such as an arrest or search? A. Subpoena. B. Summons. C. Warrant. D. Indictment. Answer: C. Warrant. A warrant is a formal written order issued by a judge or magistrate that authorizes law enforcement to perform a specific act, most commonly an arrest or a search, based on a finding of probable cause. It serves as a crucial legal safeguard, ensuring that such actions are not taken arbitrarily. Understanding the role of warrants highlights the legal checks and balances within the justice system. Question 20. Which of the following is an example of an exigent circumstance that might allow a warrantless search or entry into a residence? A. An officer smells marijuana from outside the residence. B. An officer believes evidence will be destroyed before a warrant can be obtained. C. A neighbor reports suspicious activity next door. D. An officer wants to question a resident about a minor traffic infraction. Answer: B. An officer believes evidence will be destroyed before a warrant can be obtained. An exigent circumstance refers to an emergency situation that allows law enforcement to act without a warrant, such as when an officer reasonably believes that evidence will be destroyed, a suspect will escape, or someone is in imminent danger, if they wait to obtain a warrant. This narrow exception to the Fourth Amendment's warrant requirement prioritizes public safety and the preservation of justice in critical moments. It's an exception to the general rule that a warrant is needed for a search. Question 21. What is the legal doctrine that prevents a person from being tried twice for the same offense after being acquitted or convicted? A. Habeas corpus. B. Double jeopardy. C. Residential judicata. D. Stare decisis. Answer: B. Double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is a fundamental legal doctrine, enshrined in the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which prevents an individual from being prosecuted or punished twice for the same crime after being acquitted or convicted. This protection ensures fairness and finality in criminal proceedings. It means once a trial for a particular offense concludes with a verdict, the accused cannot be tried again for that identical charge. Question 22. When interacting with the public, what is the most important quality for a police officer to consistently demonstrate? A. Strict authority. B. Emotional detachment. C. Professionalism and respect. D. Speed in decision-making. Answer: C. Professionalism and respect. When interacting with the public, the most important quality for a police officer to consistently demonstrate is professionalism and respect, as this fosters trust and cooperation within the community. Treating individuals with dignity, regardless of the situation, helps de-escalate tensions and builds positive relationships. This approach is essential for effective law enforcement and community relations. Question 23. In the context of California firearm laws, what does the term assault weapon generally refer to? A. Any firearm used in an assault. B. A handgun designed for military use. C. Specific semi-automatic firearms with certain features deemed dangerous by law. D. Any firearm capable of fully automatic fire. Answer: C. Specific semi-automatic firearms with certain features deemed dangerous by law. In the context of California firearm laws, the term assault weapon generally refers to specific semi-automatic firearms, including rifles, shotguns, and pistols, that possess certain characteristics or features identified by state law as dangerous. California has a detailed and extensive list of characteristics that define an assault weapon, making possession highly regulated or prohibited without specific registration. Understanding these complex definitions is crucial for firearm owners in California. Question 24. What is the legal term for a situation where a person is led by law enforcement to commit a crime they would not have otherwise committed? A. Entrapment. B. Coercion. C. Duress. D. Inducement. Answer: A. Entrapment. Entrapment is a legal defense where a defendant argues they were induced or persuaded by law enforcement to commit a crime they would not have otherwise committed. The key element is that the criminal intent originated with the police, not the defendant. Understanding this concept clarifies the limits on how law enforcement can conduct investigations involving undercover operations or informants. Question 25. What is the primary reason for conducting a preliminary investigation at a crime scene? A. To immediately arrest a suspect. B. To determine who is responsible for the crime. C. To secure the scene, identify victims and witnesses, and collect initial evidence. D. To interrogate all potential suspects. Answer: C. To secure the scene, identify victims and witnesses, and collect initial evidence. The primary reason for conducting a preliminary investigation at a crime scene is to secure the scene to prevent contamination or alteration of evidence, identify and assist victims, locate and interview witnesses, and collect initial evidence. This immediate and systematic approach is crucial for preserving the integrity of the scene and ensuring the successful prosecution of a crime. A thorough preliminary investigation lays the groundwork for all subsequent investigative steps. Question 26. When is a police officer generally allowed to use deadly force? A. To prevent the escape of any suspect. B. To stop a shoplifter from fleeing. C. When the officer reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury to themselves or others. D. To destroy property that is evidence of a crime. Answer: C. When the officer reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury to themselves or others. A police officer is generally allowed to use deadly force when they reasonably believe it is necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury to themselves or others. This is a very high standard, reflecting the extreme nature of deadly force, and it is governed by legal precedents like Tennessee v. Garner. It is never authorized merely to prevent the escape of a non-dangerous felon or to recover property. Question 27. What document is generally required for an officer to make a non-consensual entry into a private residence to make an arrest? A. A search warrant. B. An arrest warrant. C. A subpoena. D. A citation. Answer: B. An arrest warrant. For an officer to make a non-consensual entry into a private residence to make an arrest, they generally need an arrest warrant. While an officer can make a warrantless arrest in public if probable cause exists, Entering a home without consent to make an arrest typically requires a judicial warrant to protect the resident's Fourth Amendment privacy rights. This is a key distinction regarding the sanctity of the home. Question 28. What should be the first action taken by a first responder arriving at an emergency scene? A. Administer first aid to the most injured person. B. Secure the scene and ensure personal safety. C. Immediately question witnesses. D. Notify dispatch of all details. Answer: B. Secure the scene and ensure personal safety. The first action taken by a first responder arriving at an emergency scene should always be to secure the scene and ensure personal safety, as well as the safety of others present. This involves assessing for immediate threats, such as active shooters or hazardous materials, before addressing any other aspects like aid or investigation. Prioritizing safety is paramount in any emergency response. Question 29. What is the term for intentional, malicious burning of property? A. Vandalism. B. Burglary. C. Arson. D. Larceny. Answer: C. Arson. Arson is the legal term for the intentional, malicious burning of property, which can include buildings, vehicles, or other items. It is a serious felony offense, distinct from accidental fires or other property crimes like vandalism or theft. Understanding the specific intent required for arson is crucial in criminal law. Question 30. In California, what is the duty to retreat requirement for self-defense outside of one's home? A. California law requires a person to retreat before using deadly force. B. California law has a stand your ground provision, meaning no duty to retreat. C. California law requires retreat only if it can be done safely. D. California law only applies duty to retreat in certain public places. Answer: B. California law has a stand your ground provision, meaning no duty to retreat. In California, the law generally incorporates a stand your ground principle, meaning that a person facing an immediate threat of death or great bodily injury is not required to retreat before using necessary force, including deadly force, for self-defense, whether inside or outside their home. While one is not required to retreat, using only the force reasonably necessary for the situation remains paramount. This principle empowers individuals to defend themselves without first attempting to flee if they are lawfully present and reasonably believe they are in danger.